have a quick question for you guys. It's not for you guys, but it's to give me a better sense for my class in next month. Give me a thumbs up if this class would be easier to take at 9 o'clock versus at 10 o'clock. Who would prefer 9 o'clock? Give me a thumbs up if you would prefer 9 o'clock. I mean, if you would have preferred 9 o'clock. Then you guys like, too late now. Oh, okay. I think I see a no. Go ahead, Ian. Was that a no? I just don't notice with the interviews and stuff. I'm having a lot of people have conflicts, and so it's been happening. So I'm thinking about just having the class earlier. Not for you guys, don't worry, but some of you guys, some people have to go to campus too at 9. I don't think it's fair to have them sit around and wait. We should just get started, but I just want to know. All right, all right. So today we're going to finish up with part 2 of chapter 10. And yesterday I told you that we're going to focus a lot of our time today on the actual questions, right? So there will be 3 different question sets. Yes, nobody's going to say, hey, there are 3 different question sets and here they are. But you'll be able to recognize them by the way that they are presented. Now, here is where that notepad and pen are going to be critical, because you would have done your research on these different types of questions and you are going to have some notes on how to respond to them, right? So the first set of questions is called general information questions. What are these questions? These are the ones that are aimed at getting information about you. You know that they're general because they'll start with, tell me about yourself, what led you here, what do you find most interesting about this position? Now, typically, this question will be asked right before or right after they tell you about the company. I've seen it happen 50-50. I've seen interviewers say, let me tell you a little bit about the company and where you fit into it and why you're here. And then I've seen people say, hey, before we get started, we've seen your resume. We think you're a great fit, but why don't you just kind of tell us a little bit more about yourself, right? So whether they say it before or after they introduce themselves, here's what they're really asking. Why are you interested in the position, right? Even tell me about yourself. What positions have you held? If you don't really get to the heart of the question, which is answering why you're there, they're just going to follow up with that. So if they say, tell me about yourself, or, walk me through your resume, and you're busy walking them through your resume, and then you stop and there's like, okay, so what led you here? So the way you're going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, you are going to finish your answer with telling them why you're there. Now, if you really want to make it personal and even more professional, you're going to start with the passion or reason, the interest for even being in that industry. Let's say I'm a veterinary assistant and I'm going for a veterinary assistant job. And there's like, okay, tell us a little bit about yourself. Well, I know that I'm working for this pet clinic, and this clinic happens to deal with large farm animals, right? I'm getting a job there. I happen to love large farm animals. My grandparents had a farm and I would go every weekend. I'm going to start right there. I'm going to say, well, I've always had a passion for large farm animals. Every summer I would go to my grandparents' farm, and I would work with large farm animals. I knew one day that I would, want to do that. When I graduated high school, I went into, communications, and I worked for, I don't care if it's, I worked for, a phone company, and I did a lot of great customer service work there. Now, focus on soft skills here, especially if you don't have any veterinary experience, right? And I really did well working with customers, and I really liked, helping to solve problems. Maybe they have solved problems as one of their soft skills. Then jump to the next thing, especially if your career does not speak specifically to that work. I went on to work in customer service at a couple of other places, but something was drawing me to go back to school to become a VA. I decided to go back to school to become a VA. Um, I knew I would specialize in large farm animals. When I had an opportunity to find an organization like yours that specialized in, working with these animals, I knew it would be a great fit for me upon graduation. That's all they want to know. What they really want to hear is that something tied you to wanting to work for them. Every company wants to hear that. It's like going on dates. So anybody that dates a lot, you probably have great skill in this. Every person, every company that you go to wants to think, and I say think, that that position is part of your career plan. No company wants to hear you want a job. Every company, because these are careers now, like this is not Target, these are careers. So every company wants to hear that they're a part of your career plan. So you want to find a way to do that. I don't care how they position it. Why do you want to work for this company? Still start out with that same story. What drew you to this industry? What was your passion? Talk a little bit about what's in your resume. Now, obviously, the more you have on your resume that's relevant to those hard and soft skills, spend a little time there. But this entire conversation shouldn't be more than a few minutes. Don't draw this out. On average, they're going to ask you between 8 and 10 questions on average. So you don't want to spend a lot of time on one question. But that's all they really want to know with that general information question is, why are you here? Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions about the general information question section? The next section is all about what you've done in the past. So for the general information question, you don't really have to have anything jotted down on your notes. You know how to tell a story about yourself. You know yourself. This next section, however, has to do with work you've done in the past. Now, in these behavioral type questions, they typically follow right after the general information questions. You'll know it's a behavioral question, i.e., they're trying to see how you act in certain situations, is because it will be given in the past tense. They'll say something along the lines of, tell me about a time, describe a time when, something you've done in the past. If you don't have any skills, any experience in the work, which most of us won't have, they will focus a lot on the soft skills that are needed for that job. So if that job has to do with a lot of project management or teamwork or dealing with a lot of different customers, and you have some of that on your resume, and you looked at the job description and you see that they want to focus on customers, so you've made sure you heavily padded your resume to talk about dealing with customers, they may throw out a question to you, and watch this. It's going to be one of three scenarios. A time that you had to deal with a difficult customer, a time that you may have had to deal with a challenging coworker, or a time you had to deal with your boss and your boss probably gave you conflicting instructions. 90% of the time, the question is going to fall within one of those three buckets. Now, how they frame it may be different, but it's going to fall within those three buckets. If it is a customer, you already know the customer's not happy. What do they want to hear? They want to hear you tell them a story or an example of experience you've had where a customer was not happy. And watch this. You did not focus on the emotional state of the customer. This is psychology 101. They teach it in organizational behavior. Anytime there is an issue, you never focus on how something is being presented, you focus on what's being presented, right? Those of us that have mature emotional intelligence, we do it all the time. Your kid comes crying to you. You can't understand anything that they're saying. What's the first thing we tell them to do? We tell them to calm down, slow down, and tell me what's wrong so I can solve the issue, right? If you focus in on them crying and them being upset, then you're going to go down that rabbit hole and you're never going to get to the problem. It's the same thing that happens in real life with adults. But they don't need band-aids, they need other stuff, right? So adults are going to come, they're going to be upset and they're going to be emotional. You know, strangers always feel like they can dump on strangers. That's just psychology. And so what you want to do is focus on what they're saying and not how they're saying it, obviously barring, any type of extreme disrespect. You want to focus on what they're saying, right? They're upset, they're not upset at you, they're upset at the situation. They want to know that you know how to focus on the problem. So what they want to hear is you tell them a time when you had to deal with someone and you focused on the problem. Even if you've used that language. Well, there was a time I was working at, T-Mobile, and I had a customer that was really upset because they thought that they got the special, they didn't get the special, then they saw their bill, blah, blah, blah. What I did was I really focused on the problem. So what I focused on trying to get them the answer that they needed, even if they weren't going to be happy with the outcome. I know that they just needed the empathy from me to understand how they were feeling. That's all they want to hear. So you have to have a time, like I said, that is lined up. And that is what you're going to put on your piece of paper, because sometimes we get really nervous when we're in an interview, most times. So on the little scratch paper that you have, and I'm going to, no, I shouldn't say scratch paper, notepad that you have, and I'm going to, encourage you to get one of those little short ones. Don't get like a big 8.5 by 11, but just a little notepad that you can bring with you, that maybe you can just put in something that you can carry. You're going to have, maybe the customer's name was Bob. What I do, I just put Bob on my paper. I know what that means. They have no idea what Bob means, right? Not just in case the interviewer is a little nosy and they're staring down at your paper. Most people expect you to bring paper with you, because they think that you're going to take really good notes, and because you're so interested in them. So they like to see with the paper and pen. You can have little notes on there. They don't know what it's about, but you know what it's about, even if you put B for Bob. So in case they ask you a question about a customer, it triggers you. Okay, let me tell the Bob story. Only thing they want to know, did you help Bob and not focus on Bob being upset, right? And they're going to probably say, tell me a time, like I said, when a customer was really upset, right? That's what they want to hear. They don't really care about the customer being upset. They want to know that you can focus on the problem. If it's a coworker, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a coworker that is non-performing. And they want to know that you can be a team player, not, I hate to say it, not that you're going to go rat out your coworker. They want to know that you can go to your coworker and ask if you need to support them. I'll never forget when I was in the military, we were in South Korea and it was in the dead of winter, and I am from Florida. Okay, so I'll let you get that visual. And we had to do land navigation training. Land navigation training, my friends, is when they put you in the middle of a forest with a map, a protractor, a compass, and a pen, and they give you some grid coordinates, and you got to go 5 miles and find all these landmarks and make your way back home. Yes, that's how they treat us poor little children at ripe ages of 18 and 19. And I had no idea what I was doing. Oh my God, I just knew I was going to fail. And I was trying to become a sergeant. And luckily for me, I was so stressed out, and, I went into the rec hall, and this guy, he saw me being stressed out, and he sat down and he taught me land navigation. And I went out there and I aced it, like top to bottom. I mean, I had to, I'll tell you another story how I made one mistake with that, but I aced it top to bottom. And I'll never forget that. It stood out, for me, because this person helped me. He did not have to help me. And that is what it really is all about, is teamwork, right? So if you can think of a time when you had to support someone, it could be something simple. If someone's car broke down and you brought them to work, someone was having a difficult time really understanding, what was needed in a project, and you help that person. They want to know that you can be a team player. So if you have any type of story where you've helped someone, even if it wasn't a job and maybe you've helped someone in something else, give that story. Say, well, I haven't had a job where I had to work with a team member, but I do remember a time when, if you have a story where you've helped someone, that is what they want to hear, that you can help your coworkers, because everybody is trying to focus on the mission. If there's anybody that's ever played sports, y'all know the drill with that, right? You help the person so we can all win. Now, if it is a boss, very simple. They want to know you know how to manage up. What does that mean? That means that if your boss comes to you, as all bosses do, and all bosses tend to do what? They give you this, they give you that, they forget they gave you this, and they ask you to do that, that you know how to go to your boss and ask for clarifying questions, and even better, offer solutions. So if you can think of any time they may say to you, tell me about a time, your boss gave you conflicting instructions. And typically they'll ask that question if they're that type of company. So pay attention to the questions that they're asking. Maybe they're very fast paced. Maybe they have multiple clients. And you may get a lot of different change orders. They may say, oh, okay, let's say you're going out doing some residential work, if you're HVAC or welding or electrical, and you have your work orders for the day, but next thing you know, they tell you, oh no, Toby called out. We need you to go over here, and but we also need you to do that. But your boss forgot that he asked you to go to Miss Smith's house at 9 o'clock this morning. They want to know that you don't like, oh my God, this place is horrible. That you know how to call your boss and be like, hey, Derek, real quick, I just got this change order. If you remember, I got to go to Miss Smith's house. Here's what I was suggesting. Why don't I do this, this, and that, and then we can kill two birds with one stone. Do you know how to manage up? Do you know how to put out fires? Do you know how to go to your boss and basically manage up? Like, instead of him managing you, you're managing him. So that's what they want to hear. So if you can think of any situation where you've had to do that, it doesn't have to be an extreme situation where you've had to go to your boss and you ask for something, clarifying something, and more importantly, you offered a solution. You remember, oh yeah, I remember when I had worked for Patricia. Let me put Patricia. And I remember Patricia, she had gotten, maybe Patricia, had gotten to a car accident and you had to help pick up a project for her. Just write down Patricia, right? So that's what they want to know. Everything is going to be past tense. Most times it's going to be soft skills based because you don't have the technical skills. So pay attention to that job description, pay attention to the soft skills that they're talking about, or even if they don't mention a lot of soft skills on that job description, think about the type of work that you're getting into and the type of soft skills that you would need. Does that make sense? Any questions on behavioral questions? Remember, past tense, tell me about a time when, have something jotted down to jog your memory. Or if you can remember on your own, that's even better. Now, stress-related questions, we call these hypothetical questions. These are the questions that are going to center around their company. They're hypothetical because you don't technically work there. These are where the technical skills will come into play. This is where they're going to try to throw you in a scenario at that company and they want to see what you can do. So this is why it's so important for you to really pay attention to the job description and the type of work that they want you to do. You'll know it is a hypothetical question because it's going to be future tense. It's going to be, what would you do if? All right, here we go. Now they're going to ask me a question that is centered around their work. Now, here's the good thing. It's still going to fall into one of those three categories. Some customer, maybe it could be, it doesn't have to be a physical customer. You could be doing a commercial project. And so the customer could be that project, right? A coworker or a boss. It's still going to be those three scenarios, but this time they're going to place you in the job itself, right? What would you do if, you're working on a commercial project and the general contractor came in and he said that, this was all wrong, or that's the change order. You came in last night and you didn't get it, and now y'all doing it wrong, blah, blah, blah. They want to know, how would you handle that? You're going to handle it the same way that you would handle uh, um, a, a behavior, the way you would have handled it, in your previous role. You know that technically he's still the customer. The customer's technically always right. So the objective is to listen to what they're saying, work with your team to correct it, to get back on track. That's all they want to hear. Do you know how to focus, deal with the issue, get back on track? If it's a coworker, it's going to be very similar. Your coworker's not performing. Your coworker's late. Your coworker this. What are you going to do? I'm going to try to go to my coworker and I'm going to try to see what I can do to lend a hand and help the coworker get back on track. I'm going to offer up a solution. So even if it's the coworker or the boss, think really all scenarios you're going to try to offer up a solution. That's really what they want to know. And definitely if they give you a scenario based on the manager, which most times they won't put themselves in that situation because of course nobody wants to think that they're wrong. But every now and then they'll say, well, what would you do if I gave you this and gave you that? Same thing. I'm going to, I'm going to ask some clarifying questions, and I may even offer up a solution. That's all they want to hear. The main thing with these type questions is just to really know the type of work. And what you can do is you can Google. That's the great thing about it, right? If you're going for an electrical, HVAC, welding, VA role, you can Google interview questions. You can even Google hypothetical interview questions for electrical engineer, for a welder, for a VA, hypothetical or stress related questions. You can even do behavioral related questions, but especially these hypothetical questions because they're specific to that industry. You can Google those and see what they are. And I'll tell you a hint, a lot of times they get their questions offline too, unless they have a very specific need. Um, Again, most managers are not, professional interviewers. They may have really one or two questions they really care about, but they know they have to fill an hour. So they'll just download some interview questions. So just be mindful of that too, right? So you might as well just download the questions. Y'all may have the same question downloaded, but the questions that you download, and you can use AI to even say, hey, tell AI, provide me some typical interview related questions for and that job. So whatever type of job that you're going to, ask AI to give you some sample questions. Any questions on that? Sounds good? Everybody understand? Quick thumbs up. All right. Now, there are some questions they should never ask you, my friends. They should never ask you. You see that word illegal, right? That means that you can sue. Not that you would, but I have known people to sue from interviews. Believe it or not, it's rare, but it does happen. It is illegal to ask certain questions. No one can ask you about your age, your disability, your ethnicity, your gender, your marital status, your religion. And you may say, oh my God, what's the big deal? Well, let me tell you what the big deal is, my friends. You are not pregnant. Maybe you just have a large stomach and they're thinking you're pregnant. And so they're judging you and saying, oh my goodness, if we hire her, then she's going to go out on maternity leave and all this and this and that. Right? And so they're going to judge you and be biased. Oh my God, people never do that, right? Of course, we never do that. We're not a biased group of people. You walk in there and your glasses are really, 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 really thick, and you're a welder, and they're thinking, oh my God, oh my God, this person can't even see. Maybe you had an accident because you were playing basketball, and so you just have to wear that because you're doing some correction. They can't ask. They cannot. They can assume all they want. They cannot ask. Right? It's kind of like when the police stop you. Right? You cannot incriminate yourself. You don't know how they're going to take the information, and you don't want any type of bias. So they're not supposed to ask these questions because they're never supposed to make the interviewee feel as if they're being discriminated against in any way. I don't care if you have a head full of gray hair and you look like you're about to be on Social Security and they're thinking this guy can never do the job. This girl can never do the job. Maybe you gray early. And sometimes they will, yeah, most of them won't if they have a really good HR department, because you lawyers work in HR departments. They'll say, hey, stay away from this. You know, you're going to get us sued. But, they'll try to, inexperienced interviewers would try to squeeze things in. Like, oh my God, did we graduate together? Like, I don't know you. Even if you do know them, don't allow them to take you down that rabbit hole with disclosing anything personal about yourself, because it's really none of their business, and you don't know how they're going to use it. And then more importantly, you don't know how the person that they're going to relay that information to uses it. I've seen things where the interviewer just had a baby and they're super excited, and you know how people are, with their children. They got trophies up, pictures everywhere. You happen to go in there, you see something nice. Oh, nice child. And then maybe you just had a baby, so you're tempted to be like, I just had one too, and you're thinking it's great, but her manager or his manager is upset because they just came off of family leave, and then if they mention, oh yeah, and he just had a baby too, and so now everything, oh, this guy's gonna be want to run home, and people just judge, right? People judge. So what does that mean? Keep your business to yourself. Do not talk about anything personal at that interview. I do not care how friendly that interviewer is. I know you are trying to build a rapport. You can smile, say cute baby, nice dog, keep your business to yourself. Do not go down that rabbit hole, start telling your business. What you say can and will be used against you, and you don't know it's always going to be good. You understand? Unless it's something that you just know, no, 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 that is so, positive that they're not going to look at it in a negative way. But they should know better to never ask you these questions in the first place. Obviously, you can decline to answer if they do, but just be mindful of that. All right. So, what kind of questions can you ask, right? You do want to ask questions. Obviously, like I said, you want to try ask questions during the interview. Maybe you do have concerns about, where the training is going to be, for example. Don't wait to the end of the interview to ask that question. All questions that you have, you want to ask as the situations come up. If you have a question about training, they're talking about the company at the top of the interview hour. Ask then, ask your questions throughout that hour, such that they don't know if any of it is an issue. Don't ever want the interviewer to catch wind that you got an issue with something. Oh, they're not going to want to work late. Oh, they're not going to want to travel. Oh, this, oh, that. They're people. You don't want them to have any bias. So you want to ask your questions very nonchalantly, because you're going to factor all of those things in when you go back home and think about whether you want this job or not. So if you had a question about the position itself, as the person is talking about that position, because before they start giving you those stress related questions, they may talk a little bit about the position. You answer those questions and try to insert your question there. Maybe you had a question about if it's a multiple projects or not, because you went on their website and you see that they have all these different projects, and in the job description it mentioned having different projects, which means that you may have to travel from project over here, project over there. Maybe you share rides with your spouse or partner, and so you can't be jumping from place to place. Maybe that may be a concern for you. You don't want to say, oh my God, it's a concern for me, but you have a question about it. So during the time that they're talking about that position, you can say, oh, well, will my team also be on those multiple projects? Oh, yeah, you guys are going to be on multiple projects, but we have a van that takes people around. So it's not like you guys have to drive around. Oh, okay, good. Now you got that question answered. Check it off in your head. Don't be like, oh my God, that's going to be an issue for me. Like, don't do that, right? Do not shoot yourself in the foot. Just get your questions answered in a very, nonchalant way, and then you can decide whether you want the job or not once you get back home. You can ask, obviously, especially if it's project based, who do I report to? I would also ask, in a very, nonchalant way, as we're talking about these projects. Oh, okay, so we're gonna do multiple projects. Does that tend to be a lot of overtime associated with that. Maybe you really want overtime because that's how you supplement your income, right? That's when you interject there. You don't wait to the end and say, "Is there going to be overtime?" No, because now you're making it seem like overtime is an issue for you, and you don't want that person to think, "Oh, okay, so what if we don't do overtime? Is this person going to have an issue?" No, you talk about it as they're talking about the project. Then you can decide again, how do you feel about it? If they say, no, well, we're really tight right now because that second project haven't started. So for the first 2 months, we're not going to do overtime at all. Okay, you got your answer. Write it down. You can decide if that's an issue for you later. Right? So those types of questions you can ask. A question that is very common to ask is, where are they in their interview process? You need to know, am I the first person that they've interviewed or am I the last person that they've interviewed? Why does that matter? If you're the first person that they've interviewed, you already know they're going to be interviewing for the next couple of weeks, unless they tell you, oh my goodness, we really really like you and you're up next, buddy. We just want you to meet with Sam, and then you're in there. Most times if you are the first person or they're just interviewing for the first week, I know we all love to try to be the first person they interview. Sometimes that's bad because by the time they get through all those interviews, they've forgotten about you, unless the other people are just horrible. um you want to know how to manage your expectations. If you know that they're going to be interviewing for the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you're going to continue to interview with other places anyway, but you also at least get to manage your expectations and not thinking because you haven't heard from them in 3 weeks that they don't want you. Conversely, additionally, you can also ask, questions like, will the project get started right away? Are they already in the project? I like to ask this question, but you got to be careful because you don't want them to think that you're concerned. I always like to know, am I filling a new position or am I taking over somebody else's job? Especially in my line of work, because I've gotten hit hard. I've gotten to a job and they were in the middle of an audit, and I ended up having to work till midnight for the first, for like 3, 4 weeks because they were in the middle of an audit. And one of the reasons why they wanted to bring me on is because they needed help with that right away. And I'm like, well, lady, you could have told me that. Like, oh my goodness, I'm so upset. I'm still upset about that. And that was years ago. Um, like, so you want to know what you're walking into, right? So you want to find a way to make sure you ask that question. Again, let's say it's a new project. So you may want to know, oh, has the project started yet? Or you guys are just getting started? Oh, no, we're just revving up. We're trying to get started. We're going to get started, in the next 2 weeks or so. So for the first 2 weeks, you'll just be in training. Oh, okay, now I understand. Or it's, no, man, we got started, 2 months ago, but then we lost Larry. He decided to move out of state. So we're really behind in that project. Okay, now uh-oh, I'm probably gonna, it could be a good uh-oh, but you know what you're walking into. Those questions are fine to ask. What should you never ask? Please do not ask them about money. What, Miss Taylor? That's why I'm there. The reason why you do not ask about money is they've already told you in the job description, hopefully, that what the range is. If they were very sensitive to salary, then that screener has already told you, hey, this job starts out at 25, hard stop. This job starts out at 30, hard stop. Do you want to move forward? If they're not sensitive about that, they're going to give you a range, or they would have put the range, in there. And that means that they just want to see what type of hard and soft skills that you have. Clearly, the more that you have, the higher they may offer you. Now, obviously, every company is going to try to get away with offering you, the lowest that they can. That's just business, right? But let's say the range goes from 25 to 40. You need at least 30, let's just say, because maybe that's, where you are and you feel like that's what you're worth. Well, you're not going to go in and say, I need 30. You're not going to talk about 30. They are going to determine based on how you're answering their questions, based on whether they feel like you're a good fit. Maybe if in the job description it said that they want someone that's worked multiple projects, they want someone that has dealt with residential customers, they want someone that can probably be a team lead. If you've mentioned any of those things in your conversation, and they're like, oh my goodness, I really like this person, they probably would really fit in to be a team lead. They may lean closer to the 35. You never know. It all depends on what you say. But here's what's going to happen. They're going to take back the results from this interview, and they're going to compare you against everybody else, and they're going to see who's the most qualified, and they're going to say, okay, I really want this guy. You know what? He did have some team lead experience. I think we should offer him 32. I think we should offer him 33. They have to go back and negotiate. So they don't know what they're going to offer you. That hiring manager, unless they happen to be the CEO and you're coming in at some really small company, they can't even offer you the money itself. They have to go talk to HR. They have to talk to the main manager, and they have to figure out what they want to offer that position. You're going to go back home and you're going to ascertain everything that they've said. You're going to say, okay, these people want me to travel. They talked about being a team lead. They've told me I have a lot of their experience. I know for sure I definitely need 30. I know it said 25 to 40. And I was willing to go down if I didn't have to, do multiple projects, but they're talking about multiple projects and they're talking about possible team lead. I definitely want 30. HR is going to come back to you and they're going to say, hey, Patricia, we thought you did great. We like to offer you 32. You're going to be like, ooh, even better. Or they may say right now, especially if they're trying, you can always tell if they're trying to go low because they'll say right now we're really tight. And since that other project hasn't gotten started yet, the most we can offer right now is 28. Now, you should already know what your bottom number is, right? If you can do 28, do your numbers right. You said you want 30, but you should also know what your rock bottom number is, right? So if they say that, you can say, most people say, okay, let me think about it and get back to you. Now, I'm not telling you to do that. Some people negotiate. I'm not telling you to do that on your first job, especially with you're working with career services. They're going to let you know because they work with a lot of placement. So, if this company says they pay X amount starting out, hard stop, a lot of times they put you in companies like that. So the negotiation doesn't really happen until you get to your second job. But it's my job to teach you the negotiating process and why you don't really ask questions about salary until after you leave the interview. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right. So, of course, this is why we want you to practice. This is why we want you to practice, right? We got to practice. Every practice makes perfect, especially when you're starting out in a new career. None of us haven't done any of this, most of us haven't. So we have to practice, right? Yes, you're in school and you're learning all these new things. So now you got to go and regurgitate this stuff to these people that have been doing it forever. And of course, that's so nerve-wracking. So it takes practice. And this is why we want you to do those mock interviews. Clearly, we all know what to do the night before, and we'll talk a little bit more about the bias of not doing these things, like not, being on time, making sure you clean, making sure you ate. Oh my goodness. I'll tell you guys a story next week about a lady that I interviewed and she didn't eat. So her stomach was growling throughout the whole entire interview. It was so embarrassing. I was going to show you guys a mock video, but we're short on time. So I'm just going to go ahead and get to our live conference question. So here we are. I want you to name three things you're looking for in a company. Three things that you're looking for. I'm asking you to do this because I want you to start researching companies. Three things that you're looking for in a company. If you have that long-term goal in mind, right? Your long-term goal is your North Star. This is why it's so important for you to set a long-term goal. Your long-term goal is your North Star. So with that long-term goal in mind, what are three things that you're looking for in a in a company that makes sense for your career? Please don't say money. That's obvious, right? All right. Very good. Quickly, please remember tomorrow is midterm. Tomorrow technically is your midterm day. What does that mean? That means that we will not have an official, we will have a live session, but it won't be an official live session. Think of it similar to you coming to school, your teacher giving you a couple of talking points, and then they tell you go take a test, right? It's going to be the same type of thing. So make sure you come here early because we're only going to be on this live session for the first 5-10 minutes. I'm going to give you a couple of instructions. I'm going to remind you of some things. I'm going to give you your conference question, and then I'm going to release you to go take your midterm. Do you have to take it at that time? No, but is it scheduled for that time? Yes, you can do your midterm at any time. You can do it today. You can do it all the way up to Sunday. But technically tomorrow is open book midterm day, so we won't have a full live session. Go ahead, Ian.
So, like the last session tomorrow, like, are we gonna still be graded if we show up or not?
Yeah, so live sessions, remember, you get graded for the question. See how I just gave you this question? You'll still get a question tomorrow. So you still need to come to get the question or watch the video to get the question. It's
All
still
right,
going to be graded.
all right, thank you.
Yes, sir. So think of the live session as a attendance. So you still got to come to get attendance, but then you go take a test. Let's see here. Uh, any more questions? All right, y'all. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.